Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
They go on my ring finger. Look here, Preston. Focus on this thing. Oh, man. Mwah. I brought my collection.
A little kiss for the hardware. The Alabama football players and coaches received their national championship rings on Monday night. This came right after the steak and beans dinner. The Crimson team, winners of Saturday's 8A game, ate steak, while the white team had to settle for beans and franks, but I think they all got full. It's all part of a long-running Alabama tradition. And it's our Tuesday night tradition right here on WVUA 23, Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock Bottling Company, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. And once again this week, we've got my new favorite, Pepsi Zero Sugar. And nothing against Diet Pepsi, mind you, and a lot of people, that's their favorite. But to me, Pepsi Zero Sugar just has a little fuller taste, and you don't get any of the calories, which is obviously important to me. Not so much to Mr. Skinny over here, but for me, that zero sugar is a big, big deal. Well, Rodney, Saturday was the last time that we'll see the Alabama football team inside Bryant-Denny Stadium until the week 2 of the regular season against Arkansas State. The first-team defense outplayed the first-team offense, and the second-team offense really outplayed the second-team defense. That resulted in a 24-12 win for the Crimson. Now, redshirt freshman Mac Jones and kicker Joseph Bulovas won co-MVPs of the game. A-Day was just a small sample of the spring and the improvements that this team made. That was just one day. Here's Nick Saban on what happened the entire spring.
All in all, we made a lot of progress this spring. Not completely satisfied with where we are, but certainly excited about the opportunities that we have to try to improve, over the summer and the individuals over the next 4 or 5 weeks on their own, so that when we come into fall camp, we're going to have a stronger team and more individuals that can go out there and play winning football.
So Coach Saban already looking ahead, that's what he does. But let us take a look back at Saturday. Rodney, you were there for the entire game. I was only there for the first half. I had to leave to go to softball. But what were some of your takeaways from the final spring scrimmage? And I call it a spring scrimmage because even though it was an 8A game, really the only thing different was that fans were allowed in. It was still just one scrimmage, one practice out of 15. So and I want to say that because we put so much stock on what we saw on Saturday. But for these coaches, they watch these players for a full 15 practices. Right, so they're not going to just take Saturday, engage the entire spring on that, right?
And I think you have to be really careful, Gary, just watching the A-Day, basing conclusions off of that. But I tell you what, it was really obvious of one thing. Alabama has a ton of talent. Again, this team is far from being developed a finished product. Certainly they're going to get a lot better. But when you look at the talent they've got, I mean, it's pretty amazing, quite honestly, on both sides of the ball. And, not only that, Gary, but I thought Joseph Bulovas, I thought that was a very, very positive sign. He was 5 of 7 on field goals. He banged a 49-yarder, 48-yarder like it was, something that really wasn't difficult for him. And remember, now listen, this is his first real opportunity to be in a situation like this on A-Day. It's on ESPN, so, there's a little bit of spotlight on him, and I thought he did an outstanding job.
I did, too. Of course, a lot of the focus was on the quarterbacks. First, who didn't play? Tua Tagovailoa. Secondly, who did? Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones. Let's start with Jalen Hurts. A lot of publicity last week, not of his own doing, but his father coming out and saying that if he wasn't the starter in 2018, he would consider transferring. I think that put a big spotlight on him, maybe a little added pressure. He didn't perform at his best, and I think initial reaction was, wow, he was terrible. But, second thoughts and looking at it again, he did some good things, but certainly I think he would tell you he would have liked to perform better.
Well, first of all, let's say this. You've got to look at the defense. I mean, he was going up a really, really good defense.
Maybe the best one he'll face.
Yeah, maybe the best one, certainly. Did he show some of the same tendencies that we've seen that have kind of made him struggle at times? Yes, he did. But at the same time, I go back to this as A-Day. You know, a few years ago, Blake Sims struggled mightily.
Sure did.
And you remember he came out and threw for 3,400 plus yards and, you know, nearly 30 touchdowns, 28 TDs that year, and leading Alabama to the SEC championship. So I don't put a lot of stock in this necessarily in the A-Day game. But the thing you do look at is, again, bailing to the right quite a bit. Those are the kind of the same tendencies we've seen.
And on the other side, Mac Jones against the second-team defense, it needs to be pointed out. But, boy, he had a nice game. And we have heard that he is a very competent thrower of the football. Reminds some people a little bit in the numbers, the 10 as well, but of A.J. McCarron. And I thought we saw some of that. He looked in control. He made good decisions, and he threw a really catchable ball.
You know, the thing about it is you mentioned A.J. McCarron, and a lot of people have said that, and that was one of my early thoughts when I first saw Mac Jones. And, you know, you look at him, he's just a redshirt freshman. A.J. didn't start till he was a redshirt sophomore.
That's right.
So you look at him and you kind of gauge his progress. Certainly, Gary, I think it's possibly that it's on that level that we saw from an early A.J., but I thought he did a nice job. He delivered some throws down the field. He delivered, you saw the crossing route that he threw for the touchdown to Darius Townsend, who had an excellent spring, a guy that got an opportunity with some of the injuries. But all in all, I thought Mac Jones did a nice job. What was he, 22 of 35 for about 289, a couple of touchdowns, so he did a nice job.
And you already mentioned Bolvis having a good day kicking the ball. Skylar DeLong flashed his potential as a punter, taking over for J.K. Scott. One final quick thought, and that was the first-team defense, particularly up front. Now, I know they want to build some depth, but, boy, Raekwon Davis and Isaiah Buggs on the inside, those pass rushers on the outside, they were a nightmare for Jalen Hurts. I think they're going to be a nightmare for a lot of people.
Yeah, I really do, especially when you start off with Isaiah Buggs and Raekwon Davis. But another guy to really watch is an emerging guy up front on the defensive line is number 92, Quinnen Williams out of Winona. You know, Gary, he had every time he got in the game last year as a redshirt freshman, he made plays. And this year he's had a good spring, and I think he's going to be a guy that's really going to be a force in this next season.
And that first-team offensive line had some issues at times, but again, that's a really good defensive
Well, and that's
front.
a work in progress too, you know.
That they were facing. And, and Womack wasn't there,
right.
and they'll have some chance to tweak. A-Day was also an opportunity to add to the future. Alabama picked up 2 more commitments over the weekend, including Talia Tagovailoa, the younger brother of Tua Tagovailoa. Talia's commitment came just before the game on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the Tide picked up a commitment from offensive lineman Tanner Bowles out of Glasgow, Kentucky, who's been compared to Barrett Jones. Rodney, the Tide is on a roll in recruiting. How big were these 2 additions over the weekend?
Well, Talia Tagovailoa, I mean, you talk to some coaches, and I've talked to some high school coaches that have seen some of the best players that's come through this state, some of the best quarterbacks for the last many years, 25 plus years, and they tell me this guy throws the ball better than anybody they've seen that's come through this state in a while. Now again, I know there's another excellent quarterback or 2 out there this year that may be comparable, but you know, Gary, you hate to really compare them, but the way they say it is, he's a right-handed version of Tua.
Yeah, one throws.
That's pretty
one
good.
One throws left and one throws right, but we are told both can throw with the other hand if needed, too.
It's amazing.
But you see the video here, the ability to throw on the move, and just a great prospect. And I mentioned Bowles. I've heard some comparisons to Barrett Jones. That's high praise, but he seems to have that type of versatility and that type of intellect as well. Play a lot of different positions.
You know, I think that's your comparison is really about the versatility, the athleticism.
Right.
He's a guy, I talked to his high school coach today, actually, who said, you know, what Alabama really likes about him, Tanner Bowles, is the fact that he's a 5-position player.
Right.
He can play center. He actually snaps in the shotgun. He's their snapper on field goals, extra points, and could play tackle, could play guard. So it's the versatility.
All right. Still to come on Tider Insider Television, 2 Alabama teams are getting ready for SEC tournaments, and one will be right here in Tuscaloosa. We'll have details. Plus, Alabama senior Alexis Osorio made history again in the circle over the weekend. We'll hear from Patrick Murphy. And coming up, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us at TITV@WVUA23.com. Brandon will be taking a look out for those emails, and also he'll be checking Twitter. You can tweet at us using the hashtag TITV. So there's a lot of different ways to get in touch with us and make your voice heard. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. Good things happen when you get Lexi Osorio run support because she's great in the circle. A couple days after getting swept in a doubleheader by Tennessee, Alabama roared back on Monday night to avoid getting swept at home, shutting out the Vols 4-0. On Saturday, Osorio became the 4th Alabama pitcher in history and the first SEC pitcher since former Alabama star Kelsey Dunn in 2011 to strike out 1,000 batters in her career. And then last night, she threw a complete game one-hitter with 7 Ks in the win. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Well, Bama came into last night's game with 4 losses in its last 5 contests. Tennessee outscored the Tide 14-3 on Saturday, so there was a lot of relief after Monday's win.
It's just team softball. I think everybody was involved with the win, and it was a big, big win for us for sure.
We just talked about it yesterday about fighting more, competing more, battling. Don't let them win too easily. And I loved it too. Before the game, Peyton Grantham, one of our seniors, said, "Today's a great day to start a streak. You know, why not today? Let's start our win streak and take it from here on out and keep on winning."
That's what they'll try to do this weekend on the road. It will not be easy. Georgia may be playing as well as anybody, including Florida. Alabama heads to Athens. Meanwhile, the baseball team didn't come close to salvaging its weekend series. The Tide was embarrassed, outscored 44-10 in a 3-game sweep at home at the hands of Auburn. First time Bama has been swept at home by Auburn since 1976. Now that's the 6th straight conference loss for Alabama, putting the Tide in last place in the SEC. Alabama is hosting Troy tonight before an SEC road series at Arkansas this weekend, so they're struggling a little bit. Also, to recap the weekend, the Alabama gymnastics team fell short of reaching the Super 6. That was only the 3rd time in school history that happened. Bama finished Friday's semifinal in 8th place. It was the last Super 6 because next year they changed the format. Only 4 teams will reach the final day. Well, that wraps up the gymnastics season. Meanwhile, golf is in postseason mode right now. The Alabama women's team competed at the SEC Championships this past weekend in Birmingham at Greystone Golf and Country Club and were knocked out by Arkansas in the semifinals. The men tee off at the SECs at St. Simon's Island in Georgia tomorrow morning.
The SEC is probably, my favorite week of the whole year. We got the best conference in the country, and we played an incredible place in Sea Island, and so our guys are energized. And I'm looking forward to seeing how everything, seeing what is ahead of us. I'm very proud of our guys in their preparation. I think we've done the guys have done a really good job of preparing properly and getting ourselves ready to get there. Now it's time to get there.
And tomorrow is also the start of the SEC men's tennis tournament, and this year it's right here in Tuscaloosa. Alabama will host and will also be the first match tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock against Auburn.
Anytime you can play at home, and certainly for the SEC championship, there's a great deal of confidence going in, and the guys, even despite some of their close defeats, some teams would throw in the towel, and these guys have not done that at all this year.
And coming up next, the Alabama men's basketball team loses another former starter. We'll have more on this latest departure. And next, we'll welcome your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information is posted right there on your television screen. 205-348-9882 is the number. There's the email address. Or remember, you can tweet at us. Please use the hashtag TITV so we can find you. We'll be back with you, Tider Insider Nation, when we return right here on Tider Insider TV. Well, just last year at this time, Braxton Key was celebrating an all-SEC freshman season. Now, he's out of here. The junior-to-be announced his intent to transfer following a disappointing injury-riddled sophomore campaign. Key marks the 3rd departure from Bama basketball as guard Armon Davis will transfer to UC Santa Barbara as a graduate transfer. And, of course, Colin Sexton is moving on to the NBA. All righty, let's head straight to the phone lines. And first up tonight is our pal, the Tomato Man, Sammy, up there in Walker County. How you doing, Sammy?
Hey, Gary, Rodney. Glad to talk with y'all guys. Proud to hear from y'all guys, and hope y'all doing well. And my thing tonight on the recruiting front was, I agree with you, Gary. We're really doing, on the roll. But at the end of the day, what really sticks up there, and it's going to be that way with Alabama, when you get those big-name quarterbacks, and they got 2 of them, so they're really looking great right there.
Yeah, Sammy, so far so good. And, starting with momentum, You still have to finish. But I think Alabama learned a lot last year with that early signing period. I think they're going to do some things differently. And quite frankly, I'm willing to make this prediction right here in April, Rodney, that this will be a top 3 class come next December and February.
Yeah, I think that's a really good bet on that. And I would say this too, Sammy. I mean, yeah, you're right. Quarterbacks certainly make a big difference. But I also think that Alabama's going to have a great offensive line class, and I think one of the keys is having a tremendous defensive line class, Gary. I think that's really the areas of need. Also need some inside backers, which I think they'll do really well there, too. So, again, I think it's going to be a really well-balanced class. And again, it is early. But Alabama's in on a lot of really top players.
And we've mentioned this a lot, but these young coaches that have come in here, eager to prove themselves, understanding they're coming to the #1 football program in the country, and they're out to make a mark, and they're doing it on the recruiting trail. All right, let's go to Brilliant and talk with our pal Jason. Jason, you're on TITV.
What's going on?
Hey, man.
What do you think about Jalen Hurts' dad giving Coach Saban an ultimatum? If he don't play his son, then he's going to be the biggest free agent in college football, and we all know he's not going to start quarterback.
All right, Jason, thanks. I don't know if I'd call it an ultimatum. I think there were some other things that he said in there about Nick Saban, how they respect him, and he's got a decision to make. I don't think the timing was good, and I don't like anybody that's a parent of a player going through the media. And I haven't talked to Coach Hurts, and I don't know if he regrets that decision or not, but I don't think he did Jalen any favors. I will say this, and I understand what you're saying, and a lot of people feel that way, but Nick Saban has not closed this quarterback competition. So technically, we don't know who is going to start. We know who you think will start, who most people think will start, but until Nick Saban names a starter, it has not been settled within the football team.
Yeah, and that was what was so awkward to me about the comments is Nick Saban has handled this very professionally. He's been fair. He's been open. He certainly hasn't embarrassed anyone by naming someone a starter at this point, especially a guy who's put so much, made so much contributions over the last 29 games as Jalen Hurts has. And it really was, to me, the timing of the comments were awkward when you have 3 practices left in an 8-day game, and Coach Saban certainly hadn't tipped his hand. So, we'll see.
But let me say this, Jason, and I've said this, and Rodney knows I've said this, in regards to any player. This is a program. If Jalen and his family feel like the best thing for him to do is leave, then they're not going to shut it down around here. They'll keep playing football. That's something that he's got to decide and his family has to decide. I hope he stays. I think he can offer a lot to this football team either way, whether he's starting or not, but that's a decision they have to make. But they'll be short on quarterbacks if that were to happen, but they'll manage. They always do. All right, we're going to take a timeout. BT, you stay on hold. We'll get to you when we come back. Trey Mullinax set a course record at the Valero Texas Open on Saturday, shooting a 62 in round 3, but the former Crimson Tide golfer came up 2 strokes short of his first PGA Tour win on Sunday. He did finish in a tie for second, which is the best tour finish of his young and promising career. And 2 current Alabama golfers were named to the USA team in the Curtis Cup coming up in June. Lauren Stevenson and Kristen Gilman from the women's team are both ranked in the top 15, ranked 7th and 12th respectively in the World Amateur Golf Rankings. The Curtis Cup is June 8th through the 10th in New York. Way to go. All right, let's go right back to the phone lines. BT has been patiently waiting here in Tuscaloosa. Go ahead, BT. BT.
It's CB.
Well, okay, CB. Sorry about that.
That ain't no problem, brother. What's going on out the U of A? Is it in the air, Kool-Aid? You know I got my favorite sports, but softball, we didn't have that show enough good chunk, or we'd be in, and we may be in trouble anyway. Baseball, nightmare, gymnastics. Of course, we did win the SEC, but didn't make the big dance. Golf, basketball leaving. What's going on? Is it just
well, they
play football all the time?
No, CB. I think that Greg Burns got a commitment to trying to be competitive and win in all sports. You mentioned baseball's having some struggles, and it's going to take some time. I mean, I just hate to rain on people's parade, but you're not going to come in here just because you hire a new coach and it's all going to be fixed. The reality is, the talent level has got to get better in baseball. Softball, there is a little bit of a drop-off. We've talked about it. I think it has a lot to do with the other teams in the league. But there are some really good programs still. We mentioned men's and women's golf. They've got a chance both, I think, to compete for national championships. The men's track team won the SEC Indoor Championship. It's hard for every sport at any program or any university in the country to be championship caliber all the time in every sport. I do think that's the goal, but it's just reality that you're not going to win all the time in every sport.
Well, I think baseball, Gary, is certainly going to be on the upswing because I really believe Brad Bohannon is going to do an outstanding job as a recruiter. He's going to bring in a lot of talent. I mean, sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. I mean, he just got here. As far as softball goes, I guarantee you this. Patrick Murphy has not forgotten how to run a program. Again, they may have slipped a little bit. They may not be the program that they were. I think a lot of it has to do with what Gary says, teams catching up. And you combine those two together, a little bit of a slippage, and, you know, that's kind of the way it is. But I know that Patrick Murphy's very excited about the recruiting classes that he's put together, and he thinks they're going to be really good in the coming years.
All right, let's go to Birmingham and talk with Reg. Reg, how are you?
Yes, good afternoon. I'd like to ask Rodney a question and then a couple of comments. Rodney, did you notice how the defensive backs played? Did they make the tackles and did they cover right? And Gary, I'll ask you, how do you talk so fast? I've never seen a Southern boy talk.
All right, Reg, I talk fast because sometimes I got to talk fast to get through this program. I've always been a fast talker when I need to be, which is good. Those defensive backs, what do you think of them?
Well, this spring I think you're replacing a lot of guys, obviously, Reg, and you look at Savion Smith, Trevon Diggs, both of those guys have done really well. The safeties, Deontay Thompson, Xavier McKinney, some of those guys have done extremely well. I think they're going to be good. It's just a matter of experience, but I do think the secondary will be good.
Thanks, Reg. Thanks for the phone calls. We're back after this. Well, fans have been asking, even on this show, for a Notre Dame-Alabama series. They're getting it. They'll just have to wait a decade. The Tide and the Irish are set for a home-and-home series starting in 2028 in South Bend and wrapping up 2029 in Tuscaloosa. Notre Dame leads the all-time series 5-2. And another trophy for Alabama Adapted Athletics. The Crimson Tide wheelchair tennis team took home its 4th straight championship in Orlando. The Tide remains the #1 team in the nation. Bama won the wheelchair men's basketball title in February. And as always, our beautiful shirts and ties provided by the Locker Room downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original elephant wear, and so much more. Go by and see Alex and Rush and the folks in person or shop on their website, locker-room.biz. You can get all the same great clothes on the website. You'll look and feel like $1,000,000. Don't forget, if you missed the show tonight, you can catch a replay at 10:30 after our news at 10 or online anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks to Brandon, Seth, all the folks Trey in the control room as well. And thanks to you for watching Tider Insider TV. And we'll see you again next week.